Since March 2017, MI5 and the police have together disrupted 43 late-stage attack plots. Some of those plotters were trying to get hold of firearms and explosives in the final days of planning mass murder. Our vital work together has saved numerous lives. The headline split of our counter-terrorist work remains roughly 75% Islamist extremist, 25% extreme right-wing terrorism. But under that headline, much has shifted. Straightforward labels like Islamist terrorism or extreme right-wing don't fully reflect the dizzying range of beliefs and ideologies we see. We're encountering more volatile would-be terrorists with only a tenuous grasp of the ideologies they profess to follow. People viewing both extreme right-wing and Islamist extremist instructional material, along with other bits of online hatred, conspiracy theories and disinformation. The terrorist trend that concerns me most. The worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State. Today's Islamic State is not the force it was a decade ago. But after a few years of being pinned well back, they've resumed efforts to export terrorism. The ISKP attack in Moscow was a brutal demonstration of its capability. We and many European partners are detecting IS-connect activity in our homelands, which we're moving early to disrupt. And Al-Qaeda has sought to capitalize on conflict in the Middle East, calling for violent action. To illustrate, over the last month, more than a third of our top priority investigations have had some form of connection of varying strengths to organised overseas terrorist groups. The UK has taken robust action to constrain Russian aggression. Earlier this year, the last remaining Russian military intelligence officer was expelled from the UK, and diplomatic accreditation removed from a number of sites. We'll keep bearing down. The UK's leading role in supporting Ukraine means we loom large in the fevered imagination of Putin's regime, and we should expect to see continued acts of aggression here at home. The GRU in particular is on a sustained mission to generate mayhem on British and European streets. Now to Iran. Since the killing of Mahsa Amini in 2022, we've seen plot after plot here in the UK at an unprecedented pace and scale. Since January 2022, with police partners, we have responded to 20 Iran-backed plots presenting potentially lethal threats to British citizens and UK residents. As events unfold in the Middle East, we will give our fullest attention to the risk of an increase in, or a broadening of, Iranian state aggression here in the UK. So to those tempted to carry out such acts, I say this. If you take money from Iran, Russia or any other state to carry out illegal acts in the UK, you will bring the full weight of the national security apparatus down on you. It's a choice you'll regret.
Well, Home Affairs editor Jason Farrell joins me now. Jason, put this in context for us. I mean, how many plots have they foiled in the past? How does this differ?
Well, I think it is showing a bit of an increase, I mean, to say, particularly in certain areas. So 43 plots. I think what's interesting is that they talk about them being at the late stage in their development, but also the fact that 20 of those plots were from a kind of different type of source. We're used to hearing about them coming from terrorist organizations. And in fact, the former MI5 boss talks about how his job has changed, that was something that he was used to dealing with. But what has differed now is that it's coming from state-backed terrorist sources. So, for example, 20 plots foiled that have come from Iran. I have to say, he made the point, actually, that this didn't necessarily relate to the current disruption in the Middle East and the conflict in the Middle East, that this had been happening since before October the 7th, and that it'd be going on now for a couple of years, this increase in Iranian activity. I think there are really kind of three key things that struck me from the speech. One is this resurgence of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, the sense that they are trying again to organise and fund terrorism in the UK and other places around Europe. Secondly, this increase in the state-backed stuff. And also, not just Iran, but Russia as well. He said that there was a sustained mission to generate mayhem on British and European streets from Russia, with arson, sabotage, and more. He talked about Putin's henchmen, but he did make this point that that 750 diplomats, mostly spies, have been turned away from Europe since the invasion of Ukraine, and they're actually trying to use organised criminals. You heard at the end of that clip that you played, he was making a warning to organised criminals: don't get involved in this kind of thing, because the intelligence services will be onto you. And I think the third thing that was really interesting, which we haven't heard from yet, but I'll play you a clip in a moment, is him talking about young people getting involved in this. Now, 13% of the work that MI5 is doing is based around suspects who are under the age of 18. That's up a third in 3 years. Have a listen to what he has to say.
We're also seeing far too many cases of very young people being drawn into poisonous online extremism. Sadly, 13% of all those being investigated by MI5 for involvement in UK terrorism are under 18. That's a threefold increase in the last 3 years.
And what he's saying is, as well, is that this is skewed towards far-right extremism, that often they're picking up all sorts of sources of hatred and misinformation online that is radicalising young people and others in this way. So what he's painting, really, is a very multifaceted picture of threats to the UK, first from the resurgence from Al-Qaeda, then the state-sponsored stuff, but also a lot of people, lone wolves, being radicalised online by misinformation and material that is coming from multiple sources.